For those about to listen to us talk about the rocker, we salute you. Because when it comes to rock and roll, age ain't nothing but a number. Ratings, however, those are numbers. And despite how low things can go, we raise our horns and say to heck with that. Because this movie is not that bad. Welcome one and all to It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies and a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Now, I know we're an audio-only podcast, so let me divulge a little bit about myself. I am, how do we say, of a certain vintage, and I'm also a rocker on weekends whenever the band I play with gets a gig. So when Greg from Movie Date Night said, hey, let's do the rocker, I'm like, I feel attacked, but I'm in. I'm all good. So Greg, welcome back to the show. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. I got to watch The Rocker again. I love this film.
I will admit that this was a first watch for me. So
I'm surprised. I thought this would have been like right up your alley.
See, I don't know, because I mean, I remember seeing the trailers for it. I'm like, I don't know if I want to watch this because I don't want to feel attacked.
It was too close to home. I get it. Okay.
I mean, admittedly, I'm a bassist. I'm not the drummer. And, you know, drummers are like, you know, if you've watched Spinal Tap, you know, drummers can come and go as things explode. But
I love that joke. They're like, is this the seventh or the ninth drummer that we're talking about?
So what is it about The Rocker that made you want to talk about this today?
The number one thing about this is the music. The music in this movie is so good. I had sent you recently this playlist I made on YouTube that I called Focello, where it's like a musical like concert with only fictional bands that exist only in movies or TV, such as Mouse Rat from Parks and Rec. Not the Pussycat Dolls. What is their name?
Oh, Josie and the Pussycats.
Josie and the Pussycats. Yeah, I was like something. Some things like that. And the band that I have that closes, the headliner of my Focello, is ADD from The Rocker, because all their songs, I think, are just so kick-ass.
I'm not going to lie. I was definitely bopping while watching this, because you're right. The music is spot on. Also, Josie and the Pussycats, sorry, they are the greatest fictional band of all time.
No, I agree. But that's why they front my Focello. They're at the top. They're like, this is what's going to get people in the door. And then we'll go on to Aldous Snow from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, things like that.
Right. Also, we cannot forget the Wonders or the Oneaters from that.
I have them there too. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
You also can't forget the Fabulous Stains from Ladies and Gentlemen, the Fabulous Stains, and early Diane Lane. We're going to diatribe at this point, I can tell.
We could just do maybe you should do that. Maybe you should have another podcast. Haha. That's just fictional bands.
Don't tempt me with a good time, dude. Don't tempt me with a good time. All right. So we are about to talk about The Rocker, the movie, not your podcast host. But before we do, it is time to take this film and trailerize it.
Long ago, in a spandex-clad time far, far away, one drummer finds himself cast aside like so many pop culture fads by his bandmates as they ride the gravy train to fame and fortune. Now, despite a broken down body, broken up relationship, and broken moral compass, a man named Fish will join his nephew's band, and he'll go wherever they do go. Then, with one sweaty-ass YouTube performance, they'll find themselves on the freight train to rock and roll stardom. Can Fish learn to swim upstream with a younger band that somehow hasn't kicked his naked ass out with multiple alcohol, vomit, sweaty, immoral, and disgusting incidents? Well, Motley Crue kept Tommy Lee, so maybe. Rainn Wilson is The Rocker, rated PG-13 for post-glam rock.
Nice.
Yeah, there are so many times I'm sitting there going, okay, they pulled from this story, they pulled from this story. That being said, Apparently, the story to this film is loosely based on Pete Best, the original drummer of the Beatles, and Pete Best actually has a cameo in this film. So that is pretty freaking cool.
It's one of those movies too where it's like, I saw this interview with Vince Vaughn recently, wonderful actor Vince Vaughn, and I forget the exact question, but they asked him something like, why are comedies not as good or like not the same as they were back in the mid 2010s, 2000s? And he says, because nowadays a lot of comedies have to be like an IP based thing. You have to have something for like audiences to like be guaranteed to buy tickets for. But back in this time, a golden age, you could just have an idea. You could just have like, what if we do something that's kind of based upon the whole Pete Best, like getting kicked out of the Beatles? What if we have an idea of like, you know, a young teenage garage band and the weird older guy who's also in the band, you know, or even just the idea of like, I want to see a movie just with this one actor or actress in it that I know from something else to see how they do. This is kind of like the testing for Rainn Wilson to see, can he carry a movie on his own? Because he's been in a couple of things before. If you are an eagle-eyed viewer, you might have seen him as one of the aliens in Galaxy Quest, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so this is kind of like a test to see, like, can you actually, like, do you have the juice to carry movies yourself, or is this kind of like a lost cause? And I mean, you mentioned the trailer. I think one thing that got a lot of people to go see this movie is the idea, or maybe to not see this movie, is the idea of like, hey, did you know you could see Dwight from The Office's bare ass in this film?
I will admit, I got a real kick out of watching this film because it was mostly shot in Toronto. And one of the first clubs that they play in this show or in this movie is the Reverb. That club is no longer there.
Oh,
However,
nice.
I did get to see Joey Belladonna from Anthrax in a solo show from there. That was awesome.
That's pretty cool. And I've heard similar things too. I think it was you or someone else I talked to said that Scott Pilgrim versus the World is like a perfect time capsule for like Toronto in like 2010, because like a lot of the shops and a lot of like the things that they show there and highlight like aren't there anymore.
Oh, absolutely.
So
yeah.
It's very interesting to have like movies as sort of like cultural time capsules like that.
Well, there are so many movies out there where it's like, if you know what to look for, I mean, Driven, starring Sylvester Stallone, was shot here. And there are plenty of Toronto references. You go back and watch some of the early Police Academy films, you can see the CN Tower in the background, guaranteed. But let's start talking about The Rocker here. The movie stars Rainn Wilson, Teddy Geiger, Emma Stone, yes, Oscar-winning Emma Stone, Josh Gad, Christina Applegate, Jason Sudeikis, Jane Lynch, Jeff Garlin, Will Arnett, Fred Armisen, Howard Hessman, and many, many more. It was directed by Peter Cataneo, who previously directed The Full Monty and has since gone on to direct some TV shows, including The A Word, which is a fantastic TV show. This is actually Emma Stone's second film, the first being Superbad. The movie had a budget of $15 million and worldwide gross only 8.8. When it was released on the August 22nd, 2008 weekend, it debuted all the way down at number 13 with only $2.6 million. The number one film that weekend was the second week of Tropic Thunder, but there were three debuts that weekend. The House Bunny debuted at number 2 with $14.5 million. Yeah. Why do I get the feeling, and I'm going to have to double check it somewhere down the road, I have a feeling if the House Bunny qualifies, we're going to have to talk about it at some point.
Yeah, I'm checking now. Go ahead.
Debuting at number 3 was the remake of Death Race at $12.6 million. I guarantee you I'm going to have to talk about that one. And debuting at number 10 was The Long Shots with $4 million. So The Rocker, the lowest grossing debut out there. Even at number 5 was the second week of Star Wars The Clone Wars, the animated movie. And we've already talked about that one on this show. So The Rocker didn't get, a lot. Although that being said, The House Bunny also had Emma Stone in it. So she was in 2 movies that debuted on the same week. And I have not checked it to see if anyone's actually been in the same movie that debuted on the same weekend. dear listeners, if you know if that's ever happened before in Hollywood history, if one person has been in a movie that debuted, or two movies that debuted on the same day, you're going to have to let us know at Not That Badcast. I'm curious, but Emma Stone has Oscars, so she can do whatever that she wants.
It's amazing. I've nenever heard of that before, but that's fantastic.
It is. I am absolutely fascinated by this.
Also, we will be back for the House Bunny 43%, 50% critics audience score.
Oh, God.
It is apparently trash. So
we will have to go back down that road. Although the reason why we are here, and not because Greg has fantastic taste in films, is the critic score. At Rotten Tomatoes, the film only has a tomatometer of 40% and an audience score of 46%. So that definitely puts us right in our wheelhouse. But let's get to the breakdown here. We start, of course, with a man named Fish, not Abe Vigoda.
Yeah, thank you. Not from the band Fish. Yeah,
exactly. Otherwise, we'd be here for about 3 or 4 hours.
For sure. Yeah.
Rainn Wilson as Fish. Your thoughts?
I think it's his enthusiasm that sells it. You can tell that his heart and soul is in this band. After you see the initial intro, like cold open, where it's Vesuvius playing, and they're playing like, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've never been a musician, but that seems like a pretty medium to maybe large gig that they're doing. It's not like a colossal stadium, but like there was a good crowd where they were playing there.
Oh, yeah.
And like, it's just, he is the one who's electric. He's like infusing this energy into his bandmates. He does the whole, like, you know, compliment them. Like, that was amazing. I got the best seat in the house between the lead vocal and guitar, you know? And it's just when they cut the heart out of their own band, because the record executive says, we want to sign you, but they want to put the record executive's kid in there and he plays drums. Like, it's heartbreaking, but then the movie does a good job of taking that heartbreak and immediately turning to comedy, because then it becomes a parody of T2 Judgment Day, where he starts chasing down the vehicle like a cheetah and he uses his drumsticks to stab through the roof of the car just to like get out like how much anger and like betrayal he has. I love his character so much in that first scene. And like, if I could show just one scene from this, it would be that. It wouldn't even be like later on when he's playing with the band or any of those the great scenes. It's got to be that. That's the selling point that hooks you in.
I'll admit, I watched this almost from a musician's standpoint. And as I'm watching him play, and I understand, apparently Rainn Wilson like actually trained so he could learn to play the actual drum parts, just like Emma Stone learned to play bass. So when she was on camera, she looked like she was actually playing the songs. Apparently she actually still knows how to play those songs.
That's awesome.
So that is very, very cool. Dear musicians, I understand the want to make the rock face, the stank face. There's a lot of stank face going on with Rainn Wilson playing this.
There is.
Like, I recognize that I have occasionally made a stank face while playing bass. It happens. Nothing can be as bad as and I'm sorry, I'm going to mention this, and then people are going to look it up. So I'm going to apologize in advance because your curiosity will be piqued. Limp Bizkit is currently on tour right now.
Oh, no.
And one of the opening acts is Corey Feldman. And he tries to play guitar. He tries. And then he has this little, I'm going to graciously call it a guitar solo. And it's all like wah face. And I'm just like, the f*** are you doing, Corey Feldman?
I heard this thing recently, and it kind of reminds me of that. One of my friends said, you know how in movies or TV, they always show the bartender with like a towel over his shoulder. Have you ever seen that in real life? And like, they were like, we've been to like 1,000 bars. We've never seen that. I feel like you're talking about the musical version of that. Like, if you go to an actual band, they do not do like the wah face. It's like just in movies and TV. And if you do that in real life, it means you're not a real musician. You're just like aping what you've seen on the magic box that shows you pictures.
Oh, I mean, any musician who says they're not trying to, cop a rock pose on stage is completely and utterly lying to you, because they all have their music idols and they all try to emulate Rainn Wilson's rock faces. A little over the top, But given the tenor of the film, I'm actually okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a comedy. I don't want to call it a family comedy because there's naked ass Rainn Wilson sweating it out in the basement of a Chinese food shop, it feels like.
I felt that it was very tastefully done.
All I want to say is I will never eat at that restaurant.
Well, I mean, first of all, they have huge rats. He moves into the Chinese restaurant that he's a super like patron of. And the guy's like, you're putting my kids through college. Please stay in my boiler room. And they hand him like a baseball bat or something. It's like, what's this for? He goes, oh, it's for the rats. Like, you'll need it.
Yeah. I mean, I can get past the rock faces. I love the fact that he trained. I mean, even like the actors from Josie and the Pussycats apparently went to rock camp to be able to like actually learn how to rock. But he's in it. And it makes sense. And the thing is, he's made Fish a completely tragic yet still sympathetic character. Like at no point is he completely wrong, and it's not like he's trying too hard to find that redemption. He's just a broken man that you do feel sorry for when things start to spiral out of control for him again.
Yeah, and his character arc is about moving on from what he lost. He was this close to tasting stardom, to achieving his dream, and then the rug got pulled out from under him. And then that clearly puts him into like a 20, 30-year spiral that he like just can't swerve out of. But then when he finally has a chance to get out of it again, he kind of also has the journey to realize it's not about me having my moment again. It's about these kids that I'm playing with and them having their moment. And I'm just supporting them. Like, just like how the drums, like, it's supposed to be the foundation that the rest of the song is built upon. You know, you got to be there to just support your bandmates. Although, because like you can have a drum solo every now and then, that's fine. But as we saw in this movie, if the drums get too crazy and take over, like when they play Prom, like the song can completely derail.
I mean, wasn't that the entire basis of the Wonders taking off? Was they brought in this sub drummer and he starts playing like their big song at like a rock tempo, and everyone's like, "Oh, we really like this song now." This feels kind of like the Motley Crue version of That Thing You Do.
Yeah. Actually, I was going to talk to you about that because there's a lot of influence, and you can kind of like get a sense, especially from Vesuvius. I kind of wish we had more Vesuvius because they only have 2 songs in this movie. And of course, like one song they played twice because it's like their induction to the Hall of Fame. But they very much, to me, do have a Motley Crue vibe with like a little bit of Poison and maybe just a touch of AC/DC. Like if you put those into a pot, that's what I got from it. How about you? Did you get any other influences?
I mean, you're definitely getting that Poison, maybe Warrant kind of vibe to it.
Okay.
But the thing is, when you think about the story, and yes, it is based on Pete Best from the Beatles, but you think about it, you go all the way back to the early 80s, and Metallica, who before they release their first Kill 'Em All album, they get rid of their guitarist, Dave Mustaine, and then they bring in Kirk Hammett and make it freaking huge. Meanwhile, Dave Mustaine is like, now I got to go make Megadeth, right? It kind of feels a little bit like that as well. Like there's going to be those references in the rock world that kind of influence those things here and there.
Yeah, and I like, that's exactly right. That I was going to bring that up too, about the whole like how some people have been kicked out of bands and they still go on to make a good band. So clearly that's where a huge part of the talent lies. And that's the same thing here. What I think is also interesting is that he's able to transition to a completely different genre of rock here, because he goes from like the 80s, like hair metal rock, to like the more kind of mid to late 2000s rock that the kids are doing, you know, like more like not exactly like a pop, but I mean, it's just like a different tempo. It's a different kind of like structure to like their music that they're playing, but he's still able to pick it up and run with it.
It's a power pop thing, yeah.
Like a power pop, yeah. So that's a sign also of a good musician, that he's not just stuck into like, this is how I play the drums, you know? I mean, I think it'd be a completely different movie if he was a death metal player where he's like, like at the beginning, and then he goes to their pop. But you could definitely see that he has the talent. It's just that he didn't have the chance, or he wasn't able to dig himself out of his little depression. And like I said, it's just a fun journey. Fish is such a fun character. I mean, he also has his weird moments, like he likes to rock a pocket of puke. just before each performance. I'm like, okay, that's a weird superstition, but fine. Some athletes don't change their socks ever. So I'll go with that.
I mean, we just got through the Stanley Cup finals and Connor McDavid wore like the same suit while they were on that winning streak. So, it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Gad, who played Matt, Fish's nephew, your thoughts?
I've always liked Josh Gad. I took notice of him very early on in his career. This is actually, I looked up, but this is only the 6th thing he's done according to IMDb. So just like how they got Emma Stone early, they got Josh Gad nice and early. I think he also has a pretty decent little arc in terms of like he's kind of shy and like doesn't have his own voice, so to speak, to like, say what he really wants. And then eventually he gets there and kind of is willing to be more present and have more of a presence himself, like in conversation with others and on stage. But I feel like they didn't quite put the button on it that I needed. There is the fangirl in the audience that he like throws his hat to at the end. And I kind of want to see how that goes or how he further develops. He's fine in this movie, but I feel like they didn't fully utilize Josh Gad as much as they could have. Because we've seen him in other things be brilliant early on, but here he kind of doesn't have as much to play with.
I think the problem with that, though, is that you have to ask yourself whose story this is.
And that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely Fish's movie, without a doubt.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I think if you wanted to turn this into, and this probably would turn it into something a little bit more Disney Channel-esque. If the movie was about ADD and not the drummer Fish, then okay, maybe it's, you can focus on Matt's storyline a little bit and him coming out of his awkwardness. But it's Fish's story, so you can't really go too much into all these little side plots. But I do like that aspect of it. Like, that was the most rock and roll meet cute I think you could have had.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point. Yeah, we can't get into every story. Like, we may talk about her a little bit later, but Christina Applegate's character, she's revealed that she was in a girl rock band earlier, but then like she had to drop out of that. And I was always curious, like, tell me more about this. But it's like, you don't really need more to flesh it out. It's just like, it gives her some more character depth, but I don't need to know like her discography to like appreciate it more.
Oh, exactly. I mean, was Josh Gad playing it pretty awkward? Yes, but I think you kind of needed that in order to be able to really differentiate the two families. Because, yes, Fish was, just a waste at this point. Like, his life was like literally in with the rats, and then you've got Matt, who's, from the good side of that family. You needed to kind of play that out. And I think the dichotomy worked well.
The only part of his character that I think is kind of awkwardly done, and I wish they would have like redrafted it, is there's this bit in the middle where it almost seems like, does Josh Gad have a crush on Emma Stone? Where like, he's kind of putting his head on her shoulder while they're sleeping. When they're on the bus, he has his eyes open and is kind of like just staring at her. Then he pretends like he was sleeping. But then like, he doesn't really follow through with any of that. And like, I get the whole, like, some bands, they say like, no, like we don't play where we work kind of thing. Yeah. And some bands completely do that. I'm looking at you. What the band that did Rumors, Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
Like, like that entire album is like, we hate everybody who's here. And we also love everybody. But it's just, I feel like they were starting to go somewhere with that. And then they just abandoned it. Like once Emma Stone gives him that kiss to be like, there, you kissed a girl. Now go talk to those girls. It's kind of over with that little arc. And I guess he's like, oh, that wasn't as good as I thought.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where I kind of like the fact that they weren't, a couple. No,
I don't want them to be a couple. It's just weird that like they start to go down that road and they completely swerve away from it.
Oh, exactly. It was definitely out of left field. It made sense for that moment. I wish they had played the two of them together a bit more, like almost a brother sister, bandmates in arms kind of thing, rather than like, oh, are we going down this road now? But no, it went well, and I think they ended that questioning at that point very well.
No, I agree. Yeah, and I mean, like you said, it's only so much movie. It's got to be one person's story, not everybody. So if you like Josh Gad, this is a nice little cameo. It's a bit more than a cameo for him because he does have a role, but like that's kind of what it almost feels like at the end.
Yeah.
Like as much as like Aziz Ansari's in this film, but like just a little bit more screen time.
Teddy Geiger, who played Curtis, the tortured singer-songwriter. Your thoughts?
I love Teddy Geiger. I was very disappointed that Teddy wasn't in more things after this. I will say that in real life, Teddy Geiger has recently transitioned into a woman. So I'll be using she, her pronouns. But I was very interested in her. She's one of my favorite parts of this film, watching that character kind of like go through all of like their musical development, also realizing that they have daddy issues because they were, the dad abandoned them when they were younger. But damn it, if the songs aren't catchy as hell. And I was actually kind of looking to be like, I want to see this person in more stuff, but they've only been in like 3 other things, and 2 of them are like TV stuff. But I will say, she has gone on to like her main career, her bread and butter is doing soundtrack work and musical composition. So like, if you want to get a lot more of like the same kind of music to this here, Teddy Geiger has a phenomenally stacked discography that you can go through.
Oh yeah, and she's done quite a bit of work with Shawn Mendes as well. So now you see why Shawn Mendes isn't, kind of been blowing up a little bit.
Exactly.
The first thought that came to my mind while watching her performance as Curtis in this was of Jonathan Skate, who played the lead singer in That Thing You Do. Likable, but not unlikable, like not too unlikable, right? Curtis isn't a bad person, just kind of deep in thought and emotion, and not the guy that you want to hate. And I think played pretty darn well. Like, obviously, Curtis is very much inside themselves, like very taken in with the words and getting them out on paper and making a song, and that drive with Fish, where they're just kind of letting go and just enjoying the moment. It's, I don't know if I wanted the potential romance point between Curtis and Emma Stone's character, but I also like that it wasn't the central point of the film. It's just background. Because again, it's Fish's story, but I think Teddy Geiger did a pretty damn good job with this role.
And the thing is, like, yeah, Curtis is very, very mopey at the beginning because of this whole issues. And even Emma Stone calls it out like, well, when your dad leaves and you're at 5, you kind of get it under your skin a little bit. But yeah, once he and Fish do that drive test to be like, if we can play our own music and feel like we're on top of the world, we know we got something. After that, you start to see Curtis pick up a little bit more. And I think that's the journey that Curtis needs to have, is the whole, once again, this entire movie is kind of about just letting go. It's about letting go of your past trauma. It's about healing and moving on. It's about letting go of your fear and taking that chance. And I think it's almost like a healing film. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I'm not a therapist in any way, but like I'd probably reference this as like, if I had to do a discussion about like moving on from things, like, yeah, like this is a fun film that like doesn't take itself too seriously, but is about like people like developing and getting past things. I think the only person who doesn't, as far as I can recall, have any kind of arc is Emma Stone's character. She's just there to kind of support the rest of the band, really. Kind of like bass normally is. Like it's there to like flesh out the like melody, but once again, can't be everybody's story.
I was gonna say, are you saying that the bass player just keeps the groove and keeps everything together like glue?
1,000%. Yes, that's what I'm saying. If that hurts your feelings, then that's my uneducated opinion.
No. That is exactly what a bassist needs to hear. We're good. Okay,
cool.
But since we're talking about her, Emma Stone as Amelia, your thoughts?
I like Emma Stone. I remember especially taking note of her in Superbad. I thought her character in there was fun. I actually had a friend that I went to school with who kind of looked like Emma Stone. So I was like, oh, it's Amy on screen, kind of, that was fun. Like she could have been Emma Stone's stunt double. That's how close of a look it was, but it's, like I said, I feel like she doesn't have much to do other than to be the girl in the band, and that's maybe like sad, but that's what's going on here. She is there to essentially be, because Josh Gad, he's too introverted that he can't really have these lines. So she's kind of be there to almost be like the person to explain for the audience the exposition, like, oh, Curtis is mopey because of this reason. Oh, Josh Gad is being all shy because of this reason. And she's literally like a walking exposition thing. The only moment that she really gets for herself is when they're doing the music video and her hair gets totally teased out beyond recognition, beyond belief. And she has that moment, and then Fish can kind of like help her out there. Christina Applegate comes and helps her out. But other than that, like, I hate to say it, but her character is kind of unremarkable.
See, I'm going to counter that in that I think you needed Amelia to kind of have her ish together. And she kind of does. She's the mother hen of the band.
Yeah.
She kind of, she cares for Josh Gad's character like a sister would, right? Obviously, she's the, understated love interest for Curtis in this. And she's the one who is going for the dream. And, the fact that this is, this is the girl that's making sure that everyone is kind of getting their say in, she's advocating for Curtis to get those songs out. She's advocating for Matt to go after the girl, to go, to chase that dream. Sometimes you need that character, that glue, that glue that kind of holds the team together. And I feel like Emma Stone really did that here. And I'm glad you mentioned that scene where she kind of has that one little freak out moment, because I feel like Amelia is the kind of character that everyone leans on and everyone depends on and everyone turns to, and she's not used to being upfront. Yes, she plays bass. Yes, she's on stage, but as a bassist, she probably hides in, the fact that she's just the groove, and yes, backup vocals as well. But this whole idea of being on camera and being all, videoed out, that's got to be nerve-wracking for someone who clearly uses a little bit of sarcasm as a defense mechanism and hides more in what she does for the rest of the band, as opposed to put herself out on Front Street.
Yeah, because especially when you're in a music video, you've got no place to hide, unless you happen to be Fish and you're holding up a giant maraca. But that's besides that point. But no, you're right. Yeah, I consider that way. But you agreed to a very good point of she's the cornerstone, the solid foundation that everyone has to know is going to be there and be dependable. And so when she does have this freak out, the band's like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, if she's having a hard time with this, like, how are we going to get through this? Then again, Demetri Martin was not the best music video director in the world there. So
no, and definitely not. But I like the fact that it was, a combination of Fish and Christina Applegate's character that kind of helped kind of bring her back to reality. Because, every now and then the glue needs an extra layer to kind of help hold things together as well.
Yeah. And I do really think, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in a second, I think Christina Applegate's character is also vitally important to this group, because she's also been someone who's been through the whole rock and roll scene. So she has a little bit of that roadmap ahead, but like Fish is also like too eager to go down the mistaken paths purposefully because, hey, that was fun when we trashed a hotel room. Let's do that again. Well, it's not 1985 anymore. Maybe we should actually worry about paying the bill for the Marriott hotel before we leave.
Well, since we're talking about Christina Applegate, let's talk about her right now. As Kim Powell, Curtis's mom in this, you're right. I don't know if there's anyone who could so realistically pull off the fact that, yes, suburban mom, but yes, also was a hard rocker in her own days in a punk band. But your thoughts?
I was actually a little disappointed. I couldn't find anywhere online. Maybe you did, because you're pretty stellar with your research, to see if there was any almost plays for this film. But I couldn't think of anyone else who could really do this role, because you're right. She purposely perfectly plays the suburban mom and like teacher and everything. And then when she does say like, oh, I was in a rock band too, it is kind of a jaw drop, like, damn, okay. But like, you don't disbelieve it. It's just, you never saw it coming. I think that her story, as short and sweet as it is kind of a familiar story to a lot of people about the whole, I had a really fun and vibrant and fast and free, youth, made a mistake, and it brought that to a screeching halt. because I had a baby when I think she's like 17 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And like, as much as that is sad, it's also good to see that she's still able to develop her life into a way that makes her happy and makes her feel fulfilled, and I always do want to say, I want to see more about her band. I want to get a little bit more of her backstory. But as we said before, I think just knowing that I was in a rock band and I don't want to talk about it anymore also speaks volumes to her character for how much she's moved on and how much she's grown and developed from that. She's not living in the past like Fish. She's like, yeah, that was a chapter in my life, and now that's closed. Now this new chapter is I teach computer class in high school, something like that.
I think it's one of those things where the fact that she is a young mom, right? So still remembers vividly, clearly the fun times that she had, even though, things didn't, the punk band didn't work out to that kind of level, so she sees Curtis trying and putting songs out there and really doing their absolute best to get her. Now they're on the precipice of this moment of being able to go on tour and do a video and do the things that she didn't get a chance to do. So it made sense that she was the one to basically volunteer to go on the bus and help and go on tour and really push them out there as well. Like, really, she's doing this for Curtis. She's absolutely doing this for Curtis. And I love that. I love the fact that here's a mom that will hop on the bus and, be the guardian, if you will, so Fish doesn't really mess things up. But then you have that moment where you could see like a bit of a relationship start, or at least a closening happening between Kim and Fish. And I'm surprised they didn't really kind of go down that quote unquote pseudo dad kind of role, because
I really thought they were going to, that he was going to kind of slot into there, but
no, I don't know if I wanted that though. I mean, I love the fact that Fish was able to help Curtis feel good about the songs that he was writing. I love that. Absolutely love that. But I'm glad they didn't go down the fact that Kim and Fish were starting to get close together. I'm glad at no point there's like, Curtis doesn't need a dad. Curtis needs a drummer and someone has their together. I'm glad they never went down that pseudo dad road, even though the opportunity was there.
I think the thing that defines this as, he didn't have a chance to become the pseudo dad or the father figure, is the lessons and the help that that Fish was giving to the band and to Curtis. One of my favorite books is Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. And in there, a lot of people have done analysis about how Lon John Silver is a strong father figure for Jim Hawkins. But if you look at what's going on in that relationship there, it's not just because here is an adult man. I have a vacant space in my life of where an adult man goes, oh, that puzzle piece fits. It's got to be more than that. It's got to be that he teaches you things that you would kind of expect fathers to teach their sons, that he is there to assist you in ways that you would expect a father to help you with. So like, he teaches him how to cook. He teaches him how to like tie a mast line, how to, trim sails, how to do all these other things that like kind of like identifies to quote unquote be a man in this world and society. And Fish isn't doing that for Curtis because Curtis isn't asking for that. Curtis, like you said, Curtis is like, I just need you to be a solid drummer. I need you to not go off the rails when we're doing a prom gig or any other gig like you did that one time. And when Curtis is feeling sad, Fish is there to, pull her back up, to say, let's turn this round upside down. Let's pick up the tempo and try, I'm not bitter. But like, he's only really in stepping when it comes to music. Fish never steps over the line and says, hey, maybe you want to change your outfit. Maybe you want to change your hair. Maybe you want to smile more. None of that. It's just, I think this would make the song better. I think that this song's great. Or I think if we change this and make this tweak, we could have a better performance. And I think that's where the definitional difference lies here, is that Fish knows here's my boundary. I'm going to stay within it in terms of this relationship. It's just about the music.
Yeah. Maybe it's the fact that Fish kind of feels, a brotherhood with Curtis at that point. And to that point as well, maybe it's not necessarily the romantic side, but maybe feels kind of like, okay, so we have someone else now who's, maybe he's feeling the need for a little bit of guidance on his own. And Kim does help with that as well.
Yeah. And I think, we have to also remember these are supposed to be teenagers. Like they're still in high school. They're having this whirlwind fame be dropped upon them. And we're going to get, we have to take a second later on to talk about how that fame starts, because it's very much a time capsule for technology then. But yeah, these are teenagers that will need guidance. Otherwise, this world will absolutely eat them up and spit them out. Jason Sudeikis' character of like this like new manager, you immediately know he's a scumbag and that he will just do whatever it takes to get the record label money. He will make these kids work 24/7, 365 if he could, without any breaks. Child labor laws be damned. So you definitely need people there like Kim, like Fish, to be like, no, it's been 8 hours. They need to take a break.
Yeah. But since you mentioned Jason Sudeikis as David Marshall, I had it written down as quote unquote sufficiently smarmy, because we have to remember, it's kind of aimed at this, Disney XD channel crowd. But your thoughts on Jason Sudeikis?
It really spun my head around, because my most recent watching of this film for this podcast that we're having now was right after I watched Ted Lasso for the first time. So like to hear him be like all sweet and like charming and then like genuine and like heartfelt in Ted Lasso, and then to go to this guy who's like, oh, the wellspring, huh? I can see you're hot and young and everything. Damn, it was like a 180 for me. But I think he does it well. He's not, you could tell he is just interested in the company line and wanting to get like this product pushed out, not about the people that's involved with it. But also he's not so like rubbing his hands in the corner, twirling his mustache evil that you're like, I absolutely shouldn't listen to this guy at all. The one thing I think is the most interesting is when he does go for the whole Yoko Ono approach to try to get Fish out by being like, oh, I took a picture of Fish and your mom close together. You should kick him out of the band. And it's like, no, I just, that always struck me as a little weird of like, if you have a good thing, why not just keep that good thing going? Because like, just like in any sports teams, even in bands, I'm sure there's a certain amount of chemistry that needs to be there. Like, I don't know how well it would go if you took the best drummer in the world and the best guitarist and the best vocalist and for the first time just put them in the room and said, now make music, make Pretty Sound go. Like they need to like know each other. They need to kind of like be able to read each other. And like, especially for stage presence or live performances, you have to be able to look at each other to see like, okay, like, what changes are we doing? Like, what's the rhythm? What's the tempo? Like, it always blew my mind in Back to the Future, where Marty McFly gets up on stage with a band he's never played with, starts playing a genre of music they've never heard before, and just says, watch me for the changes to try to keep up. Like, is that possible? Can they do that?
You know what's funny? It can actually happen. Like I've been in the situations where, like someone has asked us to learn how to play a song. It's like, okay, cool. We'll get to the break and then we'll take 15 minutes. We'll quickly learn the things. And then you're really kind of just feeding off each other. And that's really how jam sessions kind of sometimes happen too, where the drummer will start a little rhythm or the bassist will start to play a riff or the guitarist will play a riff. And then all of a sudden it's like, before you even realize it, you're actually building a song just out of, rando noodling. It does happen. So yes, absolutely. Those moments are actually possible. But I think the thing though is that here you have someone who reminded me instantly of Paul Giamatti from Rock of Ages.
Oh yes, God.
Yeah. I mean, it was almost perfect for that. And again, perfect for the actual rating or age rating of the film as well. Like at first I thought, oh, maybe this is the role that Will Arnett should have played as opposed to Lex, the singer from Vesuvius. But I think Jason Sudeikis pulled it well. I love the fact that you mentioned Ted Lasso, because I went the opposite direction. I've been watching Hit Monkey before watching this. Okay. And yeah, this is actually tamed down from Hit Monkey.
No, he's such a good actor. The range that he can play, because I think the thing about Jason's portrayal of characters is that whatever level he's playing it, you genuinely believe that he is that heartfelt or that wholesome or that skeezy or that smarmy or whatever it is. He just does a good job of getting that vibe across.
Oh, absolutely. And let's be honest. Anyone who comes in as the agent, and when it comes to a music film, they're not a good character. And Jason Sudeikis pulled that off perfectly for the audience that this was aimed at.
And I think what really does it for his character that lets you kind of like get a peek about like how the thing about him is that he can't read a room, this character, because some of the references that he makes to the kids, like, would be off-putting for them, if not even like, who is that? Like he says like, what is it? John from the Beatles just rolled over in his grave to hide the boner you just gave him. Like, that's gross. Don't say that to kids. Second of all, like, they may not know who that is. I'm always surprised whenever I talk to like younger people who were born like 20 years after me, being like, what movie are you talking about? Star what? Starfight? Star Wars.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So like, they may not even know who the Beatles are.
I would love to see a film where you take a character kind of like Jason Sudeikis' agent, who just comes off the road with like the heaviest of death metal bands and then has to like manage some like K-pop group.
Oh, that'd be great.
That'd be
That'd
fantastic.
be so fantastic. Yeah.
And right now, Hollywood's going, that's really good.
Write it down. Write it down.
Call Jason Sudeikis now.
TM.
Jane Lynch and Jeff Garlin as Matt's parents. I'm going to let you take the floor on this one.
I love both of these actors so much, even though we get barely any time with them in here. One of my favorite things in the movie is where Fish goes to Jeff Garlin and says, give me the horns. Lock them with me, with this like world's best like friendship handshake. I was like, yes, I'm going to imitate that in real life, and no one's done it with me yet. I'm really sad about it. But
okay, I need to bring this up, okay? Because I watched this film with my lovely wife, Carrie.
Yeah.
That's our thing. It's called.
Do you do that?
It's called the Rock Lock. That's our thing. And she looks at me and goes, they did the thing. They did the thing. They stole our thing.
That's great.
We've been rock locking for years.
I love that for you guys so much. Jane Lynch, she's kind of like in this movie, she's kind of like from Fish's perspective, like the nag, like get out over your stuff, get out of my house, get your own place, blah, blah, blah. But like, she's also like 100% right. Like, he does need to get over himself. It's just, I have to look to see where this was at in Jane Lynch's career. I feel like this is still pretty early for her, and they maybe didn't utilize her as much as they could have. Jeff Garlin, I know he's been around for a while, but like, it's definitely Jeff Garlin takes the stage more than Jane Lynch does in terms of like how he's the one who's like, yeah, everyone, come on, we're going to stage dive him out of here. He just quit, you know?
Okay. First, Jane Lynch, I think, needed to be exactly the character she was in order to counter just how once again, someone has to be the grounded, realistic person. And in this movie, it's if you're a woman, you're grounded and you're the realistic person. Oh, absolutely. But Jeff Garlin, okay, I'm going to drop a reference here, and I'm hoping people have actually listened to this or watched this movie. Semi-Pro.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Garlin reminds me so much of Rob Corddry's character in this, where he's just such a big fan of Woody Harrelson's character that he's so happy that Woody is banging his girlfriend. Like, this is kind of what Jeff Garlin feels to me in this. Like, he's so happy that, you know, his son is now in a band with Fish and that he's married to Fish's, you know, sister. Like, he's such a groupie.
Yeah. He gets such a thrill from living through vicariousness by people in his personal spheres. So like, his son is in a rock band. Great. My brother-in-law's in the same rock band. Fantastic. You know? Yeah.
It's, I couldn't not think of Rob Corddry in
That's such a great movie. Does that qualify?
It qualifies. It qualifies, and it's on my whiteboard.
All right. We'll talk after this, but I might be back for Semi-Pro.
Oh, definitely. Howard freaking Hessman as Nev Gator, the bus driver. First of all, fantastic name. Absolutely. Howard Hessman, your thoughts?
I always forget his character just because, like, the only thing I ever remember is just the whole his paranoia about cell phones and the radiation they can cause, like give you brain cancer. But every time I watch it, I'm like, this is a fun guy. I want more of him. I think they needed about like at least 2 or 3 more scenes of the bus driver just like having his own personal beliefs or like giving them crap, you know, or like I kind of feel that there's, to me, the perfect scene would have been like in the middle of the night, when they're all sleeping on the bus, he stops the bus, gets off. He says, I'll be back in 10 minutes. And then just like walks away, comes back with insert funny random item in his hand, puts it down, just keeps driving. Like, I want a little bit of mystery with this character. I want like, he's going through some stuff or like has been through some stuff and it's none of your goddamn business. I'm going to drive this bus. But like just 10% worrying kind of going through stuff, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is kind of like, and we've covered this film on the podcast before, National Lampoon's Senior Trip. When they cast the bus driver, they put Tommy Chong in the role. I'm like, you know exactly what the hell you're doing with this casting. You know, this is a rock and roll movie. And again, people of a certain vintage will remember that Howard Hessman, of course, was in WKRP in Cincinnati as
he sure was
Johnny Fever. Whew. So clearly we're all, you know, people of a certain vintage are going, oh man, it's Johnny Fever or Johnny Sunshine or whatever it said on his mug at the time. But yeah, no, it's okay. I love WKRP in Cincinnati. I love that show.
Yeah.
It was,
I will say, Lord and I, we have this little thing in our relationship where what we do is for the holidays, because we like, you know, Christmas, Halloween stuff, is that we actually make custom DVDs of just the holiday episodes of our favorite shows. So like we have all the Christmas episodes for like The Office, Friends, things like that on one DVD. So you can just watch all those in a row. I made one for Thanksgiving, and WKRP Turkey Day Drop is the funniest thing you will ever see. And that very few people see it, and it's criminal. By the love of God, I thought turkeys could fly.
Yep. Oh my God. I
go look up that, listeners. Go Google or YouTube rather, WKRP Turkey Drop. It's a 5-minute clip. You will not be disappointed.
Or just, you know, find a way to get the whole series on DVD.
Yeah.
Just buy, because it is it's up there with one of my favorite sitcoms of all time. It's also up there with News Radio. So
I was about to say News Radio. If you have seen News Radio, this is like the younger brother to that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Time to talk Vesuvius. Will Arnett as the lead singer Lex, Fred Armisen as Wayne the bassist, and Bradley Cooper as Trash, the guitarist, and Lonnie Ross as Styx, the drummer. Very, very, very Rock of Ages here, but your thoughts?
Such a stacked cast. Like, I remember this movie pretty well, but whenever Bradley Cooper's in this, like, I always forget that he's in there. I've always wanted, for even if I know that they don't play, I've always wanted Vesuvius to have a live show, like where they could just like pantomime, kind of like how Spinal Tap did a couple times. I think I know those guys can actually play.
Yeah,
but like I want them to have a live show. I go to a Vesuvius show in a heartbeat.
Oh well, remember too that Spinal Tap played the Freddie Mercury tribute concert.
Yeah,
they've played Wembley.
That's great. I feel like Vesuvius, especially because like the names that are attached to it, they could 1,000% sell out in like a weekend, like opposed to the tickets. Like it would be fantastic, even if people have not seen this film. I love their songs, but I also feel like they've really, really pigeonholed themselves into like, they have Pompeii Nights as one of their songs, and it's like, okay, so we're doing this. We're just leaning into the whole like historical references of our songs. You guys got not that much road to go down on anymore.
Well, I mean, the fact that Viking pagan folk metal is an actual genre of music, I think Vesuvius will have its place in the sun. But
oh, for sure,
the fact that they went to like the fake British accents, which are so gloriously bad,
so bad,
but like gloriously bad, like so thick and so hammy, where it's like, yeah. This is brilliant. This
and then,
is juicy.
like, if you look at their outfits before, like, when they first broke up with the Fish, and then later, it's like, oh, so you were like looking at like, okay, so Steven Tyler likes scarves. Let's put those in here. So Poison does like, a lot of animal prints. Let's put this in here. Let's just put all the like reference soup for like the visuals of rock bands into a blender and just see what comes out. Here you go, Vesuvius. Yeah.
One more small role to put in here. Carol, Fish's girlfriend, as played by Jane Krakowski.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. She's so good. I love her.
I know, right? I'm such a huge 30 Rock fan. Basically, apparently, if the sitcom is set in a radio station or a TV station, I'm set. I'm good. But the fact that she's in here, freaking love it. Your thoughts?
I mean, there's not too much to say. She has like 30 seconds of screen time, but I love that they do establish that Fish at least had a somewhat stable relationship, and then it's all gone to hell again because Vesuvius came up with a new album and it's going to be in Hall of Fame, and it's just like it kind of like reinforces his depression and his spiral. So like it gives you that little glimpse into there. But she is such a solid actress, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't she also an Ally McBeal? Like, I have to double check that, but I think she was in some other sitcom besides 30 Rock, and I remember liking her a lot there. But yeah, just I haven't actually gone through all of 30 Rock, but I would definitely be interested to go back and revisit it specifically just for her. She's always such a fun.
Well, she's also in The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, so she is in that one as well as far as TV shows go. And then yes, she was in Ally McBeal. Yeah, she is in Elsbeth now. So you know, there's a lot of work there for Jane Krakowski. That I just love the fact that she was there. I'm like, oh my god, it's kind of like when they cast Howard Hessman. I'm like, oh my god, it's her, right? It's great. If you know, you know. I do have to point out, and I'm not going to talk too much about her because again, she wasn't really doing much in the film except for being the Josh Gad love interest. But Brittany Allen is the I Love Matt girl. And I have to preface this. Emmy award-winning actress Brittany Allen is the I Love Matt girl. This was her first movie. She actually won a Daytime Emmy for her role in All My Children.
Oh, okay. I'd never got into her IMDb or anything, but sure, I'm happy that she's been having success for that. But I mean, she's definitely a fun character. I like the fact that she's the first like real like band follower.
Yeah.
You know,
and it is probably the most wholesome relationship in this film.
Yeah, it's just I heart Matt, and then he throws her one of his hats, and she's like, "I'm going to frame this on my wall forever," kind of thing.
but they never played her as creepy. They just played her as like a good, like honest to goodness fan who happens to have a crush on Matt. Like I thought it was great. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Oh yeah, I mean, can you imagine if it was like one of the deleted scenes is like she's trying to sneak on the bus with a pair of scissors to get a lock of his hair or something? Like, okay, we went a little too far here. But.
Yeah, no, I think they kept that exactly where they needed, especially because Matt was such a shy character to begin with. You want to have him hook up with a good girl. And I think Brittany Allen played that role to a T, exactly what they needed for that role.
But also, can't you easily see her becoming that meme of like the stalker girlfriend, which she just goes to the camera like, I see you
with the wide eyes that tell you that you're definitely going to die.
Like you made a mistake going down this road. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay. You kind of preface this at the beginning of the show here.
Yeah.
ADD. Where do they rank on your list of the best fictional bands of all time?
Well, let me pull up my little thing here. So, I mean, My Focella doesn't have everybody because they wanted to be like actual real people. So like I did not include in my thing like Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem because they're Muppets, you know, like I don't have it here, Alvin and the Chipmunks. But like Alvin is like too fluid. They don't really like keep to their own style. They just mimic whatever anyone else is doing. But like for me, ADD is they're pretty solid, man. Like they actually have their own music. They're not just aping other people. Like they're not just like, well, this is our cover band of like other things. They have a message that they clearly are trying to get out there. But the thing is, all their songs are literally just about like, my dad's not around. Like if you get to the core of it, it's all like my parent abandoned me or like I miss my dad or whatever. So they're pretty good. I'd put them in the top 5 for sure. I think we already talked about it. Josie and the Pussycats, they are number 1 with a bullet. I can't see any other fictional band beating them out in my list. Rounding out the rest of it, I might get some shit for this. I think Carrie will agree with me, though. Jem and the Holograms. As much as that movie wasn't like the most fantastic, their music is solid. Hit Me Up is a bop. Youngblood's really fun. Even Love Myself and I'm Still Here are great songs, and I play them when I'm driving around frequently. So like you can't tell me that Jem and the Holograms, despite their movie, the music is there.
I would have to put Steel Dragon from Rockstar up there.
I thought about them too. Yeah, yep. They're pretty good.
You got to put the Wonders up there from That Thing You Do. And like
I just wish their Wonders had more songs because really they only have the 2 tracks. That's like notable.
Yeah, I mean, if you went out and bought the soundtrack, there are a number of songs on there, but yeah, notably there were really only 2 songs. But yes, Josie and the Pussycats is definitely at the top of the list, but the songs are really good in this. Like they are really good. Also, Undiscovered, which is a movie that starred Ashley Simpson, and we've talked about it on this podcast before, but the band that the main guy is in, there's some banger songs on that soundtrack too.
Oh, okay, sure. I'll have to go listen to that one. But if we're talking about also like solid fictional artists, if you allow me to dip my ink a little bit, I don't think it gets any better than Powerline from a Goofy Movie.
Oh, I love it.
Eye to Eye and Stand Out. Like those are like some of the best Disney songs. I'll put it up there. The best Disney songs in general. So like there's a lot of good fictional bands out there. But yeah, ADD, if we're focusing back on them, they have a solid foundation. The music is fun. And just like how Jason Sudeikis' character says in here, like, you know, you kind of did a switcheroo. You gave me a funny movie about Rainn Wilson's butt. But then as I'm leaving the theater, I'm humming the songs. Yeah. I'm bopping along. I want to hear nothing but a good time again.
And you actually have a movie that has a decent moral message in it and in getting past traumas. So the movie is deeper than that you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a lot of great aspects to it. It's got a phenomenal cast. Critics suck.
Yeah, they do. They 100% suck.
All right, Greg, you know what time it is. Who is your MVP of The Rocker?
I mean, I would make it the music, but I feel like, you know, we got to actually pick a person. I was really torn here, but in the end, I got to give it to Teddy Geiger. Curtis really carries his film. I know we said it's Fish's film, but Curtis, I think, is the perfect secondary to Fish's primary. I think it's the next generation you want to pass the torch on to. As much as it does, like, once again, kind of give him some of a monotone note of like, it's always daddy issues. I like the fact that they still have so many songs about daddy issues and they don't all like are in your face about it. Some of them a bit more subtle, you know, the journey that Curtis goes on of being mopey to like finally cheering up and like, you know, appreciating the spot in the sun they've earned is good. And I was so personally looking and wanting to see more from her after this. And the fact that she didn't put anything out, like that's her chosen path. She was more about the music than about the film. And that's fine. But like, I've definitely gone and searched up more of her music just to listen to it, to get a little bit more of that same taste of that same, like, you know, energy that she puts into her work. So it's Teddy Geiger.
I mean, I will give her credit where credit is due. She was actually my runner up for MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that she brought like a lot to this. But for me, it's Emma Stone. And
she was my runner-up. Oh,
so I think it's one of those things where I found her to be the absolutely most real character in the film. You know, again, the glue of the band, the friend that's needed, the person who is very much about this, but not necessarily quite comfortable with everything that goes along with the rock and roll stardom. And she had, I think, some of the best one-liners in the script. And maybe it's one of those things where, you know, this is an early film for her. And as we're watching this, and again, this was my first, you know, real attempt at watching this film, you know, like we know her performances in movies after the fact and how much of a fantastic actress she has become. So it's kind of fun to go back and watch those earlier roles. And she was fantastic right from the get-go.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe it's a bias because I think she's a fantastic actress, but she is my MVP. But yes, Teddy Geiger, she absolutely killed it in the role and did a lot of work on the songwriting as well. So fantastic film, fantastic cast. Greg, thank you so much for this. Now, please remind our listeners where they can find you out there on the interwebs.
I was part of a bunch of podcasts, movie date night with my wife, Lauren, where we share movies back and forth with each other. I always like to recommend a little hidden gem for everyone here. Go watch The Women. It's a movie about women starring only women. It's a fantastic film, and surprisingly, there's not a single man in there. It's if I remember correctly, it's about like how they used to have a special divorce law back in like the 50s, where if you actually move to Reno, Nevada, you can get divorced a lot quicker than if you can get divorced on the East Coast. It's kind of like this weird like little moment of history, especially legally. So go check that out at Movie Date Night. And then also, I always like to promote that I used to be part of Mortal Kombat. It was a show where we would tournament rank and argue different things like who's the best Disney Pixar villain, best ice cream flavor. One that I think especially Jason would like, and I think you made some input on this, was best one-hit wonders or best bands that only had one album.
Oh, I know we've done an episode on that on There Can Only Be One, but I remember, if I remember correctly, I appeared on the Suckwill.
Suckwill, that's right. You did that one, yeah.
Grease 2. And then it was the TV series that were canceled too soon.
Canceled too soon for one season only, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like 1 or 2 seasons, because I remember I brought in with Deadly Class, and I was surprised that we still haven't gotten a actual resolution to that show yet.
That's how it goes sometimes. But
which also, dear universe, can we finally finish the story in Deadly Class? I'm still waiting. That season ended on a cliffhanger. You cannot cancel a show on a cliffhanger.
Well, I'm sorry, Jason, but sometimes tomorrow never comes.
But please.
Listen, I'm about to make a great escape from this podcast. I had nothing but a good time. But I'm starting to feel a little bit bitter, and now I'm down.
We've basically listed the soundtrack. Greg, thank you so much. And to you, our dear listeners, you guys know the drill. If there's a movie out there that you think is unfairly maligned or is just so bad that there is no way in rock and roll heaven that we can find anything good to say about it, hit us up on social media at Not That Badcast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out all of our other shows, and you can probably go to our guest appearances page. You can find those episodes of Mortal Kombat on the guest appearances page. Until next time, he's Greg, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is It's Not That Bad, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.
The Arwen Lewis Show is brought to you by Evolve Entertainment, featured on Pantheon Podcasts. And I'm Arwen. I inhabit our blue planet, but my beliefs belong in the celestial realm. I'm the daughter of Peter Lewis, founding member of rock and roll cult icons Moby Grape, and the granddaughter of Oscar-winning actress Loretta Young, and I've been part of the creative cosmos all my life. I'm a recording artist, musician, songwriter, and producer, and I am your host for The Arwen Lewis Show. The Arwen Lewis Show features in-depth interviews with the hottest indie music artists and music royalty. Listen to me on any of your favorite digital listening platforms, particularly from my channel on Pantheon Podcasts and thearwenlewisshow.com.
Hi, this is Peter Lewis and Moby Grape. You're listening to The Arwen Lewis Show.